The Beaches podcast is going to give you everything you want to know about a beach before you go there. I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to check out our website, www.sandee.com. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
All right. Ready to swap the ordinary for something extraordinary. Today we're heading north, way north, to a place that honestly feels straight out of a legend. The Lofoten Islands of Norway.
Ah, the Lofotens. Now there's a place that grabs you. It's like nature decided to put on this grand opera and you're right there in the front row. You've got these jagged mountains just shooting straight up from the sea. And then the reflection just shimmers in these crystal clear fjords. Honestly, it's enough to make anyone want to become a photographer.
You know, I was reading this travel writer and they said the Lofoten Islands are where mountains meet the sky and the sea whispers ancient tales. I mean, that really got to me, this whole idea of the wild, untamed nature against these little villages that look like something out of a fairy tale.
Oh, absolutely. You've got these fishing villages, all colorful and bright, tucked away in these little bays. And they've got this traditional architecture, painted in reds and yellows and all that. It just adds this layer of human history right on top of this incredible landscape. And I gotta say, I was surprised to learn about the beaches. I mean, who knew you could find these pristine stretches of sand so far north?
You know, speaking of surprises, I know you're a big fan of the Northern Lights. And guess what? The Lofoten Islands are prime real estate for catching that celestial show. They're smack dab in the auroral oval, and that means...
That means you've got a pretty darn good chance of seeing the aurora borealis, especially if you're there in the winter. Just imagine it, standing under the sky that's just alive with these curtains of light, green and purple and red, just dancing around. It's awe-inspiring. It's the kind of thing that sticks with you, long after you've left.
I read somewhere that the Vikings thought the Northern Lights were Valkyries riding across the sky. I mean, can you imagine how they must have interpreted this phenomenon, especially with how connected they were to the sea and the stars?
No, that's a really interesting thought. You're right. The Lofoten Islands were like a Viking stronghold, and you can still feel that presence today. You might be surprised to hear that at the Lofoten Viking Museum, they actually dug up this massive feasting hall, and it's big enough to fit hundreds of people. It just gives you a sense of the scale of their gatherings, their social structure. I mean, it's impressive.
Now, I know you're an avid hiker, and I've heard the Lofoten Islands have some incredible trails, like seriously incredible. A lot of them have these panoramic views of the islands and the sea, and some even go right past ancient Viking burial grounds. Can you imagine hiking through history like that?
Oh, absolutely. Hiking in the Lofoten Islands is it's like stepping back in time, you're right. But for those who might prefer to explore on the water, kayaking is where it's at. It gives you this totally unique perspective. I mean, just picture it. You're paddling through a fjord. It's totally silent except for the sound of your oar dipping into the water and maybe some seabirds calling out. I mean, it's magical.
You know, when I was looking into kayaking trips, I kept coming across these stories of people running into orcas and seals while they were paddling through the fjords. Did you ever have any wildlife encounters like that during your trips?
I did. I was lucky enough to see this family of sea otters, just playing around near the shore. It's these kinds of moments, these unexpected encounters with nature that make the Lofoten Islands so special. And of course, we can't forget about the fishing. Cod fishing has been like the heart and soul of these islands for centuries. It's a way of life.
I actually read that the Lofoten Islands have this unique way of drying cod using these traditional wooden racks called gel. I was hoping you could tell us a bit more about that tradition and, how it affects the local cuisine. Because, dried fish, I'm curious.
Oh, it's fascinating. So they take the fish and they dry it naturally, just using the wind and the sun on those gel racks. And that method, it preserves the fish, but it also gives it this really distinct flavor. They call it stockfish, and you'll find it in a ton of traditional dishes. It's like a real taste of the Lofoten Islands. And speaking of traditional experiences, you really can't go to the Lofoten Islands without staying in a rowboat. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah. Those traditional fishermen's cabins that they've turned into these cozy little accommodations.
Oh.
I was so intrigued to learn that a lot of them, the rowboats, are actually built on stilts over the water, and they have these amazing views of the harbor. It seems like they found a way to adapt to modern tourism without losing that historic charm.
Exactly. It's that blend of old and new that makes the Lofoten Islands so appealing. You can experience this rich history and culture, but you can also enjoy all the modern comforts. It's the best of both worlds, really.
So wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Mm.
The incredible landscapes, the northern lights, the Viking heritage, all the adventures you can have, even the unique places to stay, and the food. What do you think? What stands out to you as the biggest draw of the Lofoten Islands? What kind of experience would you be most excited about if you went back?
For me, it's that sense of remoteness, that feeling of escaping to a place that feels untouched by time. The Lofoten Islands offer this chance to disconnect from the everyday world and reconnect with nature, with history, and maybe even with yourself. It's powerful stuff.
That's beautifully put. It sounds like the kind of place that truly nourishes the soul. And for you, listener, if the Lofoten Islands have sparked your wanderlust, I encourage you to dive in and start planning your own adventure. Just imagine. You could be hiking to a mountain peak, kayaking through a silent fjord, or standing beneath the northern lights, surrounded by the magic of these incredible islands. The possibilities are endless.
Thanks for listening to the show, and be sure to tune in next week for your favorite episode about some of the best beaches and beach information in the world.